Well, a manufactured miracle. That is how the minority in parliament is describing President John Dramani Mahama's performance in his first year in office. The minority argues that Ghana's economic recovery, which is being credited to John Mahama, began under the erstwhile Ofori-Atta administration.
President John Mahama has been widely commended for what many describe as effective economic management, with inflation falling to 5.4%, the cedi appreciating by about 40%, and fuel prices reducing at the pumps in his first year in office. But the minority has downplayed these economic achievements. At a press conference on Thursday, the Deputy Majority Leader, Patricia Appiagyei, said such currency gains are typical of Ghana's economic structure.
Much of the recovery began before President Mahama returned to power. It's rests on an IMF program we negotiated, fiscal consolidation we implemented, and a global gold boom we did not create. Second, the same IMF report they celebrate also warns of quasi-fiscal risk, loss-making gold schemes, and hidden vulnerabilities. They publicize the headlines, they downplay the warnings. And thirdly, a 40% cedi appreciation in 1 year is normal for an economy.
The minority also described the Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana as masters of financial misdirection following a reported $240 million loss incurred through trading operations under the Gold for Reserves program.
The Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana, masters of financial misdirection. The IMF, in just 9 months, has documented losses of $214 as a result of the operations of Gold Board and Bank of Ghana.
The minority members also touched on illegal mining, saying that the 2024 helicopter crash and the state of the country's water bodies should serve as a wake-up call for government to confront the menace head-on.
Their helicopter fell from the sky and a nation mourned. This tragic incident should have strengthened national resolve to defend our land, our water, and our children's inheritance. Instead, Ghanaians watch a government that speaks against galamsey in press conferences while allowing questionable incentives, weak enforcement, and compromised supply chain to persist.
And now to our Clean Air segment. Did you know that just breathing in and out in Ghana is no longer harmless? Well, the air many people breathe every day in is at least 6 times dirtier than what the World Health Organization says is safe for any human being. Researchers at Columbia University estimate that about 16,000 adults in Ghana died in 2023 because of polluted air. Much of the danger comes from smoke from charcoal and firewood, and fumes from vehicles. These tiny particles enter the lungs, pass into the blood, and slowly damage the heart and other vital organs. Researcher Professor Daniel Westveld of Columbia University says Ghana's air quality has barely changed in the last 5 years, warning that air pollution is an urgent crisis that can no longer be ignored. He spoke with my colleague, Clean Air Beat reporter Michael Ashali.
So our analysis looked at adults aged 30 or higher. What is the associated mortality from PM 2.5? So this actually underestimates the total amount because, as sad as it is to say, there is some young, very, very young people that are impacted by air pollution and that don't make it, unfortunately. But our numbers show that in 2023. We had about 16,000 premature deaths in Ghana due to exposure to air pollution. And that's sort of an abstract number. So to put that in something that's a little more understandable, That's about 21% of all the total deaths that happen in a given year. So if you look at all of the mortality in Ghana, whether it's things like excessive alcohol use, or if it's things like high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, all of the ways that folks, unfortunately pass away, 20% of that came just from air pollution. And really that's coming just from people just breathing their air outdoors and going about their business. So it's not necessarily anyone doing anything wrong. It's just by living, just by breathing, just by going about your business, you're basically taking years off your life in the end, to an extent. So it's something that needs urgent addressing, and I know a lot of good people are working on that already.
The story was a collaboration with New Narratives. Funding was provided by the Clean Air Fund, which had no say in the story's content. Well, to some other story, on across Akraman Ashalaja, Amasaman Road, drivers like Stephen Kumi wake up every day chasing a simple dream to earn honest living. He said they are forced to battle deep potholes and frequent breakdowns. Kumi's work and pay vehicle is slowly falling apart. And he's not alone. Drivers and residents who ply this route say the poor road network is turning daily travel into a nightmare. In the first episode of our feature series, Roads of Peril, my colleague Pearl Ofori focuses on the poor road network in some communities in the Amasaman constituency.
It's dusty, uneven, and almost impassable. This is the Amasaman constituency, where large stretches of road remain untarred and have been in this state for years. I meet Stephen Kumi, a driver who has plied this route for a decade, and he says every trip is a painful experience. The 50-year-old native of Asaman Kese once hoped to become a teacher, but a lack of funds forced him to abandon school. He later trained as a mechanic before eventually becoming a driver. While he loves his job, the condition of the roads has turned every trip into a struggle.
Since from inception, this road has not seen a major transformation or something. It's very, very bad. In the election time, they will come and grade for us. Yes. After that, nobody will come here again. They will pack their tools after election. It's unfortunate. We are pleading with government and our MP, Mr. Senyo, come and look this road for us. From Amasaman to Obom, Amasaman has so many villages. So many villages.
Kumi is not alone. Drivers here share similar experiences.
The Immanuel Kansa, me a local secretary. Na ekwan we ya bon ya demonstrations sa ya demo ya bre. It is here. You see no ya adwin say because say edu campaign tema no maba. Ma dada ya na ye di omochi. Is there if I am adwin. See the kwan na say kura. Hwe ka vuro mi kura hwe. Asenya ma nyina say. Ampa o asenya ma nyina say. Is me dua bia fa manya sika akoto. Pastor no. Just here, the Quandian, to Frank, a Quandian, I say, cast a bill as the shop. Who call animal crowd once a kind of bisio. I say, it's a quanso.
We drive through Amasaman 3 Junction, Ashalaja, Ayikai Doblo, Akraman, and Doblo Gono. The vehicle wobbles constantly as we ply the uneven terrain. It takes a great deal of patience and skill to maneuver through this corridor. Vehicle breakdowns are a common sight in these communities. Drivers say more than a dozen break down every week.
Melodufre Amasamai to Akraman. Mr. Shassi in Deka in Nam Quines, 1 week from in fact, Monum who crossed him in Nam Quinoso. Madame Sonnim Hunam Nara Yamia. Nancy Yan Mabitra Quines, and Mabitra's no Crano. Still none in Shinas out on Gassaseno. In Sugas out of cry, and your cry. Namans you attack Quinos, none will be dear cry, can't be grand Jabos and Shell Jabos and Mamma, Jabos and Crassay. In fact, where the Evestre in Penifona, Omoya no Mama Boyana, Quano Moya Quano Mai. Ye ban kwa school for no muko complain Crassay. Quining your ombe faka ombe bombe cofino. No Hunamina Omoya, Ombeko, based Damino Damianzano. Na Omabre.
Former Assembly member for Ukushi Biade, Daniel Kwabna Ampong, says all efforts to draw attention to the deplorable state of the roads during his tenure failed to yield any results.
I've done most of the demonstrations in this place, call people, goes to major institutions to make sure this road will be constructed, but yet still, I think they don't care, they don't mind. But I hope the government has changed, so we're really championing that the government will look back.
With sections of the Amasaman portion of the Accra-Kumasi Highway still incomplete, heavy-duty trucks diverting through the communities have worsened the situation.
I Dobrogono. Na Dobrogono no ye kwan we me ba kwan we so 2004. Na ente kwan ente sei. Ba beduru ba bi kwan no ye hwe kwan se de kwan se tie a. Ananti ho aka ho asem a omufie. Titem bia every present day ye ko shop se me ni wo kase kura na a mo ye me interview me ni wo kase. Me fi shop na be. Makwa boso kan aba beduru ha. Akose almost 3000 me nsem. And so stand at the Bechino, Messanco shop with you. 10 be out of her liar is somewhere in the Pacoon to qua, or I didn't see.
Like drivers, traders are also feeling the brunt of the poor road conditions. Ifwa Santoa, a petty trader, explains that accessing reliable transport for her goods is a constant struggle.
About
100 meters from the Ashalaja Bridge, I meet Janet Inkum. On her own initiative, she fills deep potholes with sand, offering a temporary relief to drivers, commuters and residents who use the stretch every day.
Obia support me that. Me to be renting house mo. Sebi drivers ya. Ebi obi twemu 1 cedi. Obi twemu 5 cedis. Obi ono o twemu no hwe eduma na me ye no na. Ne fa. Ebi ono ama 20 cedis. Eno na me boaboa no kakra. Ama pe bia so.
Before leaving, I asked Janet if I could help with the work. Of course, without taking a peswa. Ganwa's Municipal Chief Executive John Desmond Soanai admits that the state of roads in many communities is a cause for concern, but assures residents that measures are being put in place to address the problem.
Ganwa, as a municipality, we are also making efforts to reshape some of the roads by using the drip equipment. But reshaping is not a solution, because when you reshape the road and it rains, it becomes worse. And the more you reshape, it means that you are taking off the surface soil and it's going down. And when you reshape, it makes it easier for the surface to be eroded. But for the networks that we've talked about, the road network we talk about, if these roads are considered, because these are major roads, and this connect to other municipalities. So therefore, it makes Accra central and easily commutable. It means that we are diverting traffic if you want to go to Kumasi. So this is not just for farming purposes. It's also a measure to urbanize the other areas to ease the pressure on Accra.
Back in the communities, drivers like Stephen Kumi say their request is simple.
It's a manhole, madam.
This is a manhole.
It's a manhole. Oh!
Decent roads that reduce breakdowns and restore dignity to daily travel. For JoyNews, I am Pearl Ofori.
Well, this evening, lawyers for former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta are preparing to fight a new legal battle to keep him in the United States of America and prevent his potential deportation to Ghana. The former Finance Minister was taken in and detained on Tuesday by U.S. immigration officials for overstaying his visa. Following the detention, the next course of action will be for Ken Ofori-Atta to be deported to Ghana. But his lawyers are fighting to prevent that from happening. A member of Ken Ofori-Atta's legal team, Frank Davis, tells Joy News their counterpart in the United States have filed a petition to extend his stay in the United States and prevent his deportation to the country.
Ken has been detained or picked up in the custody of U.S. immigration. Yes, it is a reason because he has a petition which is pending for an adjustment of his status to allow him to remain or continue to stay in the U.S. legally due to the fact that the extent of his visa to remain in the U.S. has lapsed. So the petition has been pending and awaiting the resolution of the petition. That's what I have detained it for that matter to be resolved and expeditiously dealt with. So it is not a strange phenomenon.
So this is not a reaction to the extradition request by Ghana?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely. Our counterpart lawyers in the U.S. are working on the petition, and it should be resolved anytime soon. It's not something that is beyond the U.S. authorities to extend one period of stay in the U.S. if you are able to advance reasons why your visa stay or period should be extended.
Well, my colleague Pearl Ofori has been providing details about the facility Ken Ofori-Atta is detained in the United States.
Atta has been detained in the former Virginia jail, that's Newman Sand Creek Regional Jail, repurposed into a detention center, that's the Caroline Detention Facility. Now, this facility can hold up to 336 adult detainees, that's men and women, which now include Ken Ofori-Atta, depending on the United States Immigration Customs Enforcement contract and population levels, that's ICE. Now, the Caroline Detention Facility is one of the two major ICE detention centers in Virginia, the other being in Farmville. Now, in 2015, both facilities were running at high occupancy levels, reflecting broader trends of increased ICE detention since Trump's immigration crackdown. Now, in fact, as of November 28, 2025, the Caroline Detention Center has surpassed its maximum capacity, according to ABC 8 News. Now, as of November 28, the average daily detainee population of the facility was 346. According to data compiled by Track Immigration, that's 10 more inmates beyond its design capacity. Now, the facility does not have a good reputation for managing detainees. Mr. Ofori-Atta will also share this new temporary home with criminals. The latest data from the facility shows that 120 of its inmates are in fact criminals. He will be part of the 226 detainees described as non-criminal detainees. For a former finance minister, and an investment banker, it's fair to assume that CDF will not be a comfortable home for the next few nights.
Well, in a related development, the United States government says the deportation of illegal immigrants from U.S. soil remains a priority for President Donald Trump. The caution comes in the wake of the increasing rhetoric by the U.S. president that the country's migration system is being abused by illegal immigrants to the United States. News broke in the last 24 hours of the detention of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta by United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, over visa-related issues. Now, speaking at an earlier news conference on his first visit to Ghana, Deputy Assistant Secretary for West Africa in the U.S. Department, William B. Stevens, noted that President Trump is keen on deporting persons who abuse the immigration laws of the country. There's more in the following report.
In his first visit to Ghana after assuming his tour of duty as Deputy Assistant Secretary for West Africa, William B. Stevens joined the U.S. Embassy's media roundtable here in Accra that sought to discuss emerging issues of mutual importance. A burning question on the table was about President Trump's policy on immigration.
But broadly, when you say deportations, that's talking about people from Ghana who have been in America who are now being sent back to Ghana. So we're deporting them back home to Ghana. And that is broadly, or any country, right? They've come to our country. They may have violated an immigration law. They've stayed illegally. They may have committed a crime and served their time and now are being sent home because they're no longer have valid status as a non-immigrant in the United States. So that's that. Then you have these people who have come to the United States and have abused the migration system, but have, for some reason or another, an inability to go home to their home country. And that is, and then finally we have and I don't believe this applies in Ghana, but we have people who are coming to the United States to seek refugee status. And essentially, we're asking for some countries around the world to say, well, we know that the United States doesn't have room at the moment for these refugees. Would you be willing to go to? And then we have entered into agreements with countries around the world where people can go as what's called a safe third country agreement, where they can go and say, well, I can't be a refugee in the United States, but perhaps I could go to Malawi. I'm making it up, but and we believe that some people would say, well, actually, I just really wanted to go to the United States. And we have seen President Trump's made it very clear that people have been abusing our migration system for many, many years, to the point where we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the United States illegally. And that's what this is about. It's about the president's priority and why we have focused on it around the world in protecting our borders and enforcing our laws. And we're grateful to our partners who have helped us do that.
Already, authorities in the U.S. have confirmed the detention of Ghana's former finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta, who is being tried in absentia by the special prosecutor. Ghanaians earlier raised questions before Ofori-Atta's detention as to why the U.S. government was unable to immediately extradite the former government official.
We are always open to receiving extradition requests. That is absolutely a firm part of any good bilateral relationship. It's certainly ours. The process of evaluating an extradition request is on the American side is very well established, and it is not generally very quick. And so we receive a request. It goes through the various mechanisms that we have to undertake. But the door is always open for those requests. There's no individual case that can be prejudged because U.S. judges make decisions.
It is unclear what the future holds for the former finance minister, but what remains is the third state agreement between the government of Ghana and the United States to receive West African deportees from the United States.
Well, Akosia Kusi is an immigration officer and has been explaining what can happen to Ken Ofori-Atta's stay in the United States.
In the United States. Now, ICE may also detain for pending removal proceedings. With pending removal proceedings, you receive what we call the notice to appear, an NTA, which is the charging document for deportation or removal proceedings. And so that begins the process of deportation. And there are also times that ICE may detain someone over security or compliance concerns. Now, detention is not a final decision, all right? So deportation only happens after due process. And so there are many detained individuals that are released and never deported from the United States. That is to say that a person may be detained and released later, detained and granted bond, detained and be placed in removal proceedings, or detained while eligible for relief or permanent residence. So to answer this question in summary, in the United States, detention is a temporary enforcement action, and deportation only occurs after legal proceedings in an order of removal, which is only granted by an immigration judge. Now, your second question is, can he fight the detention in court? And my answer is absolutely. So a detained individual has multiple legal avenues to challenge detention. Number one is the immigration bond hearing, which we do a lot in our firm. So a detainee may request a bond hearing before an immigration judge where the court decides whether the detainee, and in this case, Mr. Ofori-Atta, is a flight risk, and whether they are a danger to the community. Now, if the bond is granted, the person is released on bond. However, they continue their immigration case outside of the detention. There's also the habeas corpus in federal courts. So if detention becomes prolonged or unlawful, attorneys for the detainee can file a habeas corpus petition in the federal courts challenging the length of detention, the lack of due process, and in some cases, constitutional violation. There's also option number 3, which is contested removal proceedings. So if ICE initiates removal proceedings, the person has the right, in this case, the detainee and Ms. Ofori-Atta, has the right to appear before an immigration judge, be represented by counsel or attorney, and apply for relief or termination of the proceedings. Again, to answer this question, detention is absolutely challengeable in U.S. courts. Individuals have the right to make their case before a competent judge. And so, yes, he can fight the detention in court.
You're still watching JoyNews Prime with me, Carlos Calone. We have more after this break. Please stay.